So, I don't know. Like sometimes I activism takes many different forms, right? We've got to have the people that scream and shout, and then we also need the people that will do the work in the back. I'm a punk. I kind of want to make those big gestures. I want to be out, and to be honest, I want to tell people what I really think of them. I don't get that opportunity. I try and be nice. Um, and I'm very careful with what I say. And as a result, I've ended up in a few positions where all of a sudden I have responsibility. So, have I lost my edge? Am I no longer a punk? Am I a corporate shill? Ugh. Yeah, no, I had a week off last week, and I don't know. There were some tweets that came out, some really, some people, some really clueless tweets from different people, and they'd been picked up by my friends who were making comments of them. And I don't tend to I try and avoid directly making comments on tweets from people that I think are, you know, idiotic. um, I sort of, keep that to myself, and maybe I'll make a general comment. I won't specify. I'll make a comment, or I'll make a YouTube video, and I'll talk about, this author or this writer or whatever, but I won't necessarily name. And I think that's kind of important because I don't want to be part of the culture that jumps on people and you know, the, I don't want to be jumping on people because look, it doesn't matter whether we agree with each other or not, unless you're saying something really pretty despicable. We got to remember that we're all human beings. Last week I saw this. Was it last week? There's a one of the universities in America, and yeah, I mean they're paying a fortune for money having returned to university, and they're getting really poor, low quality food and just not enough of it, and it's really bad. And so a lot of people have been calling out the I don't know, like the president or the principal or whatever of the university, and they've been calling him out on Twitter, and then he blocked a whole bunch of them. And some of the students actually took a court injunction to make him unblock them. He said that he's not allowed to do that because that's how they're going to get in touch with him. Now, I completely agree with them calling out the principal of this university and the university for really shoddy and shady behaviour. But I don't think that you have a right to this person's personal Twitter account. I don't think if they've got a personal Twitter account, that's their personal Twitter account. I don't hold to this idea that people in, sort of positions of responsibility are beholden to you. Now, if it's an official department, for a position, say, so like the president, there's a Donald Trump one and there's a president one, whatever that is. I think if it's a Twitter account for an official post, yeah, you should have access to that. But if it's a person's personal one, even if they don't have one for their position, I don't think you have an automatic right to that 24/7. Because I'm a trans activist. I can take an awful lot of grief online, especially on Twitter. So I have these automatic blocks up. Now, it might be that, maybe I've blocked you or something like that. Well, no, maybe I probably haven't. It's just that I've got certain things set up, and yeah, because this is my private account and I moderate it, I cultivate it, just like you'd, clear weeds from a garden or something. Like, or even you'd get rid of other plants to make way for the ones that you like more. Twitter is full of words and content, and so yeah, I just want to hear the voices that, I'm on the same wavelength with. Twitter's not a place to have a discussion. I've said this before. There's no changing of minds. There's no, and I think there's been studies that show that for all this talk of political bubbles, it's always been the same thing, like it's not as true as you like to think. So, I don't have to open myself up to those other arguments or discussions. And actually, sometimes some of those discussions just infuriate you. But even worse, it's easy to get hounded on Twitter. It's easy to get bullied on Twitter. Look at the actress. I've forgotten her name, but one of the actresses in the Ghostbusters film, the all-female Ghostbusters film, got bullied off Twitter. One of the actresses from Star Wars: The Last Jedi got bullied off Twitter. Now, can you imagine if they said that she had to have a Twitter account, or that she wasn't allowed to unblock those people that were giving her grief? And I'm not being funny. Even if the person that you're having a go at is a bit of a scumbag, they have a right to time off, because say you get 100 hate messages in an hour, say you get 1,000, say over the course of a day you get, a couple of thousand hate messages. That's not going to be good for your mental health. And I don't care whether you're a scummy person or not, unless you've done something really, really wrong. That's hounding, and at some point that's going to have an effect on the mental health of that person, even if you think that they don't really care. No, if they didn't really care, they wouldn't block you. They just carry on, they just ignore it or give you grief back, right? So you might be making a fairly modest point, and it might be a genuine point, and it might be a fair point, but you got to remember that the people you're making it to, maybe they're getting hundreds of these, thousands of these. I don't think it's unfair that they should be able to block you. Which isn't really what I'd meant to talk about, but but it comes on to this idea. So that's interesting, because basically people are trying to take this court injunction to make this sort of president of this university, unblock these people, which I think is bang out of order. But it talks about how we do activism, and I've talked about how we do activism in the past. I think we need people that shout and scream. We need protests. Black Lives Matter protests were really important. The current protests in the UK for trans rights, really important. Direct action is a little bit more complicated. I'm never going to condone direct action, but I didn't, it didn't hurt me to see certain statues come down in Bristol in the UK. It's like, so I'm not condoning violence. I'm not condoning vandalism at all. I just think that there's a different mix. But the truth is that you can't just have the people that shout and scream. You also have to have those people on the inside, those who can talk to people, who have that. And it sounds really gross, but of an air of respectability sake, right? So you've got these activists, and they're being loud, and they're protesting, and they're sending emails and making a lot of noise, and then the people in power, maybe there's another activist that can come along and go, hey, oh yeah, no, that's really bad, but hey, so how about we do this? And I think that's kind of how I operate at the moment. Like, I've got myself into a lot of meetings and a lot of committees and stuff by sort of talking to people, being open-minded. I am willing to listen to people's views, not on Twitter, but I'm willing to listen to different views, and I'm willing to debate them. I'm able to do that, and so I will. I like to think that I'm fairly reasonable, and the scientist in me is always gonna, weigh up all the different evidence on both sides of the argument, and I'm willing to change my mind. Now, there's some things, it might be that you're transphobic, and you say, well, you should change your mind about people being trans. Well, no, because I've seen all the evidence and the personal experience, and I know that it's right to support people to transition. I know it's right to support young people to transition. Do I think that we should let people transition quickly and fast and easily from any age? No, I think it's got to be a bit of a drawn out process, because so much changes when you start to transition. And sometimes you realize it's not for you. I've known a few people that started hormones and realized it wasn't for them. Not that they're, the antithesis of being trans. It just means that system has got enough, it takes a bit of time, and it seems a bit cruel, but you need a certain amount of buffer to make sure that you're doing the right thing for people. And some people, like with me, when I started hormones, there was never any doubt. For other people, it's a bit more complicated than that. However, that's not the same as saying that we shouldn't let people transition or that we should arbitrarily put on 2-year waiting lists. No, I think there should be 0 waiting lists, and then maybe it's a process of sort of 6 months with lots of sort of psychological analysis and chats and discussions to make sure that medically transitioning is right for someone. Different arguments have different sides, and the left and the right, especially the right and the left that you see on social media, just don't take the time to listen to each other. And for me, it'd be really easy to shout and scream and stuff. But I think if you are willing to listen and be reasonable, then you can get into places and you can start really affecting change. Now, change doesn't come fast and it doesn't come easy. I see changes at, say, Oxford, that, I've seen those changes over 5 years. For a student that's coming in and is there for 3-4 years, they're gonna not see that as fast enough, right? And that's fair enough. I can understand that, but at the same time, I can take a little bit of a longer view, and I can sort of stand back and go, oh no, this is a positive change here. This isn't enough, but this is a positive change, and I'm willing to work with people to try and make that happen. And I think that sometimes you've got to work with people in a way that, feels a little bit gross. I say, like, I'm often patting people on the head for doing the bare minimum, but I want to encourage them to do more. If they're doing something positive and all you do is shout at them for not doing enough, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna, that's not the way to do it. The Oscars have started introducing these diversity targets, and you've got to meet them. And some people are saying, oh, it's woke, you've got to be PC to make a film now. And then other people are saying, you're not going far enough. And I agree, the rules that the Oscars have put in place aren't far enough. They're pretty easy to meet. But start. And if that goes well, they can increase it, they can change it. Now, of course, there's always that, like if they change it, that's it, it'll stagnate and it'll just stay like that. That's not good enough. So this is where you need to be able to get in there and encourage them to change things, and they change things. And then you go, oh, this is really good. And you think, it's like, well, but what about this? And encourage them more. And sometimes it means that I never speak dishonestly, but I don't necessarily say exactly what I'm thinking. Sometimes I mask the truth and I exaggerate how good I think something is. But that's because I know that, we'll move forward. There's a few people that are maybe transphobic or maybe just don't understand trans issues enough on Twitter at the moment, and they're getting hounded a lot. And like I say, we shouldn't be hounding anyone. We shouldn't be bullying anyone. And anyone that, if you're on the, you're fighting for a just and righteous cause, and you're doing it by threatening people with like physical abuse or death threats or something, well, no, that's bang out of order, and you're just as bad as the other people, if not worse. We shouldn't be threatening people with physical violence or, I know where you live, with doxing and stuff like that. That's just grim. That's just gross. Don't do that. Don't do that in my name. Like, you're fighting for a right and just cause. Don't lower yourself. Remember that these are human beings. It's why we don't have access to people 24/7. Why people with private accounts should be able to block people for their own mental health. And yeah, we shouldn't be hounding people. Yeah, I wish these people had changed quicker, that they'd suddenly have this sort of epiphany and wake up and see that, like, oh, hang on, trans people aren't all, serial killers or men in dresses or whatever it is that they're pushing. And maybe they'll realize, oh yeah, that joke was insensitive. Maybe it was a racist joke, a homophobic joke. Maybe they'll realize that, that their behavior was wrong. But if you yelling at people and picking on people, then it's a lot harder for them to do that, because they go on the defensive, and that's the natural thing. You've got to remember that. Now, yeah, I want to be able to scream and shout, and sometimes I want to, say what I think. And this weekend, I kind of responded to a few tweets, and I was honest. I said what I thought. Well, I kind of poked fun at them because I thought their views were ridiculous. And I don't usually go out that direct. But, sometimes I think, like, am I a corporate shill? Have I sold out? Am I part of the system? And am I making excuses for not going out there and screaming and shouting and telling people that they're awful? But no, I see the positive change it can have. I don't necessarily feel like a punk. I don't know, it's more about bringing it down from the inside, right? Changing it from the inside. And yeah, I don't know, like I say, the punk in me, I'm listening to sort of, I don't know, these different bands, and they're screaming and shouting and trying to bring down the establishment and seeing what they think, and nice. And I don't necessarily, sometimes I feel like my hands are tied a little bit, but I do think that you need to have both of those approaches. And at the moment, the softly supportive approach seems to be working for me. It doesn't always work for me. How seriously people take it, I don't know. But like I say, over time, I do see changes. I have seen changes. So I think it's important to have both these approaches. But don't be bullying people. Don't be harassing them. Don't think that you've got a right to them, even if they are jerks. Like, they're people. They're real people, and you've got to remember that. And treat them like human beings, because I want them to treat me like a human being. These people on the extreme right, or transphobic people, I want them to treat me like a human being. And if I want to be treated like a human being, I expect to treat them like a human being as well, even if I really disagree with them. So yeah, just like I say, I don't know. Maybe I'm punk, maybe I'm not. That sounds like a really weird thing to worry about, but it's like, am I still a punk? I don't know. I still listen to loud rock music, and I shout really, sort of protest songs and stuff, but I don't know. But like I say, I see change. But I think that sometimes you need protests. The Black Lives Matter protests recently have really had an impact. I hope they have lasting impact, but they've definitely had an impact, and that's a good thing. But I know that behind the scenes there'll be those other campaigners who'll be working, talking to people, and they're on the same side, but they'll be working with people. Bit of both. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm still a punk. I'm just tired punk, Anyway, yeah. So my science videos are gonna come a bit less at the moment, and if you're here for them, and my plugin stuff will come out when it comes out. I want to put out some other stuff, but I'm taking a little bit more me time at the moment, taking a bit of time off work, chill out and get some stuff done, to be honest. Do some woodwork and some modelling. I'd like to share that with you, and I will double check everything on you. Yeah, and subscribe, that'd really help. And until I see you again, bye.